Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's jump right in, because today we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We're looking at a deeply mystical text by an author named Xu Feng, and the premise? Well, it's pretty bold. It's all about uncovering a secret path, or as the source calls it, a small door, to advance to higher life spaces. We're talking about literally stepping entirely outside the three realms and beyond the five elements. Basically, transcending the absolute limits of our normal everyday reality.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever actually wanted to step outside the three realms? Have you ever just had that gut feeling that there's got to be more to existence than just the physical world we see around us? Well, this text argues that this kind of transcendence isn't just some sci-fi fantasy. It's a highly tangible state of being that our ancient ancestors totally understood, but, well, we've kind of forgotten over time.
That brings us to Section 1, The Lost Wisdom of Ancestors.
To figure out how to transcend, we actually have to look backwards first. The text presents this incredibly unique origin story, suggesting that the Chinese nation's specific life structure wasn't created in the standard way. Instead, it was actually cloned from a divine dragon imitating other beings. Because of this super unique beginning, the claim is that our genes carry a massive wealth of information that completely transcends time and space. So our ancestors possessed wisdom that is, frankly, beyond our modern comprehension. But here's the tragedy. Much of that extraordinary wisdom, it's just gone, lost. And why? Because according to the source, people became suspicious, inconsistent, and they just lacked the absolute devotion required to maintain it.
I mean, we're talking about legendary, lost arts here. Things like King Wen's divination, Guiguzi's deduction, Huzi's transformation, Zhangzia's non-material utilization, Zhong Lang's Qimen Dunjia, Zhuge Lang's calculations, and the prophecies in Tuibei Tu and Ma Qiang-Ka. And it wasn't just ancient historical figures either. Even high-ranking Buddhist monks and Zen masters who totally grasped these mysteries, they withheld their true core teachings. Why? Simply because their disciples were way too impatient. They just lacked the sincerity to handle it.
And this is exactly where the author of our source text, Xu Feng, comes in. He claims he's actually discovered some of these mysteries while exploring what he calls the negative universe. But, and this is a big but, much like those ancient masters, he straight up refuses to pass these methods down directly. He argues that modern people just don't have the moral qualities needed to receive and use this kind of immense power properly. So, the wisdom is definitely there, but the gate is basically locked from the inside.
Which leads us right into Section 2, No Shortcuts to the Truth.
If those direct teachings are withheld, how on earth are we supposed to advance? Well, the answer requires a massive shift in how we think today. You can't just, download this wisdom. It has to be independently perceived through exhaustive effort and super careful study. There's this huge divide between the impatient disciple and the patient master. The more you rush to find some quick hack for spiritual enlightenment, the further you drift from the actual truth. A true master knows that once you thoroughly understand the foundational principles, success follows naturally when the time is right. The paradox here is that the more you obsess over your own advancement, the more you cling to yourself, and ultimately, the more you lose yourself.
Let's look at an example in Section 3, The Sorcerer versus the Master.
To really ground these abstract ideas, the source gives us this absolutely captivating story from the ancient text, Lizi, specifically from the Yellow Emperor chapter. It introduces a guy named Ji Xian. He was this mystical sorcerer from Qi with a genuinely terrifying ability. He could look at you and predict your life, your death, your fortune, literally down to the exact day, month, and year. His accuracy was so spot on that the people of Zheng would run away into panic when they saw him coming. But a disciple named Lizi, he didn't run. He was completely fascinated.
Lizi was convinced Ji Xian was the ultimate authority, the absolute peak. He actually went to his own master, Huzi, and basically said, "Look, I thought your teachings were the best, but this sorcerer is on a whole other level." Huzi, completely unbothered, saw right through the whole thing. He realized Lizi had only grasped the very surface of his teachings, not the real practical depth of them. Huzi brushed off Ji Xian's abilities as just little tricks and threw down a challenge. Invite this infallible sorcerer over to read Huzi's fortune.
And that kicks off Section 4, The Four Manifestations.
This sets the stage for an epic 4-day showdown. Over 4 consecutive days, Huzi uses this escalating, intense spiritual defense. He intentionally shifts his internal life force, projecting entirely different states of being just to completely baffle this supposedly perfect sorcerer.
The progression here is incredible.
On step 1, the first day, Huzi projects the blocked, wet ash stillness of Earth. Jixian takes one look and predicts Huzi will be dead in 10 days. But then, on day 2, Huzi shows this stirring vitality at his heels, heaven and earth energy, and the sorcerer is suddenly confused, seeing a miraculous recovery. Day 3, Huzi projects a chaotic great emptiness, like 9 abysses, which is just completely unreadable. Finally, on day 4, Huzi projects his original appearance, shifting completely like water and grass, entirely without attachment. And what happens? The previously flawless sorcerer is so overwhelmed by this shapeless reality that he completely loses his nerve and literally flees in absolute panic.
This brings us to Section 5, the power of internal transformation.
Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, cool, myth, but what does a shape-shifting ancient master have to do with me? Well, the source insists this isn't just a fairy tale. It represents a reality we can physically tap into today. The core message is that humans are actually capable of infinite transformations. Sure, ordinary people can't see these super subtle internal shifts, but anyone with deep, high-level spiritual cultivation absolutely can. And honestly, we experience micro versions of this in our everyday lives all the time.
To put this into perspective physically, the author gives 2 stark, everyday examples. First, think about a person watching erotic materials. Their pulse, their blood pressure, their muscle tension, even their breathing, it all measurably changes. Their internal state totally shifts, based purely on what they are taking in. On the flip side, imagine watching a terrifying horror movie, alone in the dark at night. By the end, you're paralyzed with fear, right? If we hooked you up to a monitor right then, your energy flow would be incredibly weak, and your biological and thinking waves would be nearly erased by the terror. The mind and spirit dictate the physical reality. Huzi just mastered this connection to an infinite degree.
Which takes us to our final part, Section 6, letting go of material reality.
So what happened to Lifechanyuan after the sorcerer ran away? Well, he realized just how foolish he'd been. Feeling deeply ashamed, he went home and spent 3 full years in isolation and self-reflection, just trying to return to absolute simplicity. The text actually makes this brilliant comparison here between Lifechanyuan's failure and Jesus' disciple Peter. Remember, Peter was walking on water just fine at first, but the exact moment he looked at the storm and let the fear in, he lost his faith and started to sink. Both Lifechanyuan and Peter failed for the exact same reason. They let the chaos of the external world shatter their internal focus.
And guys, this is exactly where we stumble today. It's a real trap. We are constantly bombarded by distractions, world events, national affairs, crazy market changes, the newest technology, status, power, fame, even just mundane family drama. The author makes it super clear. If you're constantly obsessing over these worldly distractions, your mind is basically in chaos. You're never going to even touch the edge of the Tao, let alone fully understand it, if your internal state is constantly being dictated by the noise of the external world. The text challenges this lifelong modern struggle for material success with a really profound question. It asks, who actually remembers the heroes of 5,000 years ago? Seriously, think about it. All those people who fought, stressed out, and clawed for power and fame millennia ago. Does any of it matter right now? Doesn't all this endless worldly fighting ultimately amount to nothing but emptiness?
And then the author hits us with this piercing, incredibly urgent rhetorical question. Tomorrow, will you still be here on this earth? Wow. It's a sobering thought, right? It's deliberately designed to make you urgently question your attachment to your current reality and really reevaluate all those trivial things we stress over every single day.
Which leaves us with this final, powerful takeaway to chew on. Material things are not the real things. If you genuinely want to step outside the 3 realms, you have to completely let go of the illusion that the physical world is all there is. True mastery requires an internal transformation so profound that the material world literally can no longer define you. The question is, are you ready to let go?